Tonight for homework, you are going to watch a video that's going to talk to you guys about the exploration of Texas. And then tomorrow in class, we will put together a notebook page, and if you have any questions, we can review. Like Ms. Ponzio talked about in her video, after Christopher Columbus had found the New World and the other countries had learned of his voyage, the race was on. Everybody wanted to go to the New World and claim more land. So the countries had to hire explorers, and each of these explorers kind of had their own agenda that they wanted to get. These are kind of known as the 3 Gs of exploration. Some explorers wanted to go and spread the word of God. Some wanted to go and find gold. And last, some wanted to just go on the voyage for glory. They wanted to have that fame like Christopher Columbus did after he discovered the New World. The story of the exploration of Texas begins way back in the year 1519. This is almost 500 years ago. The first guy to ever come over to our New World that was working for Spain and that claimed the land of Texas for Spain was an explorer named Alonso Pineda. Alonso Pineda brought with him 4 ships, and they sailed through the Gulf of Mexico and just right along the Texas coast and then down towards Mexico. His job was to create the first map of Texas. While he was here, even though they didn't even park their ships along the coast and get out and explore, he went ahead and claimed all of the land of Texas for Spain. The next explorer to come to the Texas coast was Cabeza de Vaca. He was also a Spaniard, and when he was getting close to the coast, his ship was actually shipwrecked because of a hurricane going on at the time. He ended up reaching shore and was taken captive by the Karankawa Indians at the time. They held him prisoner for a little bit, but then realized that he wasn't a dangerous man. And so De Vaca kind of slowly began to move across Texas and meet other Native American tribes and hear stories that they were telling. Many of these stories were about the cities of gold. And he was really, really excited when he heard this because he knew this would make him very, very famous if he could find the gold for Spain. So he set off on a 2-year journey where he followed this path through Texas, searching for the cities of gold, and then he ended up eventually heading south right here and heading all the way down into Mexico. In 1540, someone had told Spanish rulers that Indians north of the Rio Grande lived in cities of gold. So Spain went ahead and sent Francisco de Coronado and soldiers to go look for these cities of gold. This was his voyage. He started off down in Mexico and came entered kind of over in the Panhandle, and then dipped down a little bit and went further up into Oklahoma. Coronado's journey was obviously unsuccessful. He did not find a city of gold at all. But the one thing that was good about it is when he went on this journey, he brought like horses and mules and cows and sheep and other things that they used for clothing and for food. But this was the first time that a lot of the Native Americans that lived in this region had ever seen that. And so even though his trip was a bust, he did learn a whole lot about the land and the other animals that were around and plants and the Native Americans that lived here in Texas. After many failed attempts to find gold, Spain decided to send some of their priests over to Texas to build missions. And this was in 1682. The hope was that they could get the Native Americans to come live in the missions and teach them how to be farmers, spread the word of Christianity to them, and convert them into citizens of Spain. The first mission in Texas was built in 1682 in the town of El Paso. El Paso is right at the border of Texas today, and the Rio Grande River is what separates Mexico and Texas. This was close by to where they built the first mission, which was Mission Ysleta. In 1685, the French explorers began to come over and claim land in Texas. This was about 150 years after, a little more than that, after Alonso Pineda had landed or had come over into the Gulf of Mexico and mapped out the Texas coastline. So this guy in 1685, his name was Robert La Salle. And Robert La Salle had actually already been to this area once before. He had landed in what's now Louisiana, and pardon me, I'm spelling that wrong. Robert La Salle, can't write and talk at the same time. But Robert La Salle had landed in New Orleans, what's currently New Orleans, and he had claimed that land for France. Well, on his voyage back in 1685, he went a little too far west and he landed in what is East Texas. So they parked their ships and built this great fort here, and their fort actually, they put their flag up, but they had problems at this fort. They couldn't farm. They were terrified of the Native Americans. La Salle, they were angry with him for not getting them back where they needed to be. And so he ended up being killed by his own people, and the rest of them deserted this fort and headed back to, they headed east to New Orleans. Well, Spain had already heard about the French landing on their land and claiming it for their own. So they were really upset. So Spain sent their military to this fort to go wipe it out and tell them to get off of their land. But obviously the French were all gone. The fort had been abandoned. On their way back home to Mexico, the Spaniards had left cows and horses by the rivers they crossed. This was the beginning of the great herds and wild horses and cattle in Texas. Just to go back over, in 1519, that's when we had Pineda come through and draw the map of Texas. And then after him is when De Vaca crashed ashore Galveston Bay, and then made his long journey all the way down to Mexico, the whole time hearing about these stories of golden cities. Well, he tells that to the other Spanish officials, and they send Coronado out looking for gold, which he's unsuccessful for. In 1682, it's the first time they build a mission here, which is kind of like a church or a place to live and to farm, and they invite the Native Americans to live with them. And this was in El Paso. Then, shortly after, La Salle claims land for Spain, and the Spanish have to make their journey all the way over to East Texas to say, get out of here, bud. Well, just kind of an interesting fact. 3 cities that are around today that were some of the first cities here in Texas. The first one was founded in 1731, which is the city of San Antonio. So we know that this is going to be a huge place during this Texas Revolution, with the Alamo there, which was a mission that was built, and so it's going to have a big part of it. In 1749, there's this town called Goliad. Well, Goliad is where they have a very famous battle during the Texas Revolution also. It's not as popular as the Alamo, and you'll have to just wait and find out all about it. And then another city that's very important to this whole Texas Revolution was the city of Gonzales. This city was founded in 1825. So it's interesting to see how over time, just in these about 300 years here, the way Texas became settled. Remember, the whole thing behind all this exploration was that they wanted to spread the word of Christianity. They wanted to teach people all about God. Some explorers just were after the gold, after the money, and then some of them were after that fame. They wanted to be the most powerful, the man in charge, the one that gets all the credit. So those were, again, the 3 G's about this lesson. The reasons why people were exploring and what they were after. Tomorrow in class, I'll go over these stories again with you, and then we're going to create this little flip book to add to our journal. These are the goals of the Spanish explorers. And then inside, we'll talk again about how they were after that glory, that conquering the world, that collecting all the gold and spreading the word of Christianity.